Good evening and welcome to the third episode in our divisional preview for the year ahead. I am your host, Brian Dolan. You have joined me and the rest of the Gridiron crew as we are going to take a deep dive into all things AFC East. Now, I'm a sensible football fan, so I don't follow the AFC East because I like good teams. However, I have some of the members of the crew know a lot more about it than I do, so they are going to be leading us on tonight. We're going to look at how all of these teams have got on pre-season, who's came, who's left, how did they do in their drafts. We're going to be looking at the year ahead for them. How does that schedule shape up, and how are they going to do? And let's be honest, it's not quite a preview. If you don't have a wee review of the year behind you, stick a knife in and get a twist and say, this is what you must do better. Report card time as well. So, with all of that said, we are going to get cracking, and we are going to start with the team who many see as claiming the AFC East, and it should be theirs for quite some time, although I've got a sneaky feeling John might disagree with that. And we are going to start with the Buffalo Bills. Now, Gav, you are leading the charge here, sir. So, talk to me about the Bills.
Absolutely. So, well, I guess it's only fair that I do the Bills preview for 2023 because this will probably be the Giants preview for 2024. The way we've been going, sneaking some players and coaches and GMs off of the Bills. But, I mean, I think that the big story of the Bills, I mean, I guess anyone who's been following the NFL for a long time, this is a franchise that famously lost 4 Super Bowls on the bounce back in the early 90s. But good times in recent seasons. But I guess if you're a fan of the Bills, starting to get a wee bit anxious, I guess the 4-year streak you want to be mindful of right now is that, yeah, they've actually won 10 games plus the last 4 seasons. Is that window starting to close? So that's something I think that the Bills really need to be looking out on. And I guess the big question mark for them over the off-season is probably their defense. So obviously last week we talked about Tremaine Edmonds going to the Bears, big departure on the Bills defense. But also they've had a few issues really with injury. Tre'Davious White at corner was actually recovering last season from an ACL injury. Signs are looking good for this season. I think that's going to be really important to them. But also, we've got Von Miller in the pass rush again with the ACL. He is expected to be back for week 1, but again, question marks. And I guess the other one, obviously, quite a significant story from last season was Damar Hamlin, safety, who has returned to full contact practice, but I think is currently on the injured reserve, as I understand. So there's a few holes to fill on the Bills D, or at least hoping that certainly their returners from injury will be able to address that. When it came to the draft, the consensus seems to have been that actually they addressed pretty much every position of need. Obviously, the big first rounder for the Bills was Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah, who really had some favourable comparisons with the receiving draft class. So that was obviously a challenge for the Bills last year, and hopefully he's going to add another weapon for Josh Allen. And certainly I think he was one that was keenly sought after in the fantasy draft for the crew earlier on in the week.
Fools, you know you don't draft a tight end in fantasy before their 3rd year, says a very concerned Kyle Pitts owner. Better produce. So yeah, this is, it's an interesting one because the Bills did do a lot of moves in the draft. They've not made, as I'm going back and having a skim, they've not made loads and loads of huge signings. In the preseason this year, they've not been throwing the checkbook around or anything like that. But it's as you say yourself, is this the end of their window? Are they? Because Josh Allen is excellent, very talented quarterback, but doesn't demonstrate it in the postseason. Is this one where have they done enough? Have they given him what he needs? Is obviously the big thing. So what do you think, looking into this year and thinking about how the Bills have been doing, what is the big area that you look at and you go, that's got to get better, that's got to improve this year if you want success?
See, I think it depends what we want to talk about when you say it is improvement. I think if you look at the Bills, what you'll see is a solid team, and you'd expect that from a team that's gone to the playoffs 4 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're seeing is a team that, as we say, you get an impatient fan base now after 4 years looking to take that next step to win those big games. And if you look across the categories, actually, kind of trending roundabout sort of, the bottom of the top 10, they're ninth in total pass offense, ninth in rushing, ninth in total D, ninth in defensive TDs given up. So that's a team that's good, but there's no one great strength. And I think that's the question is, what are they going to do exceptionally? How are they going to blow the competition away when it comes to those big games? Because that's what we've seen in the playoffs the last couple of years when you go up against the Kansas City. Obviously, we've got Burrow really coming to his own at Cincinnati as well. That's going to be the proving ground. And I think it's fair to say the last few years, the Bills have had it all their own way in the East. I think, as some of the guys will say over the course of the pod, it might be a little bit different this season.
Oh, there's an angry John just ready to get in on this. Yes, it will be different. So here's a question here. We'll give this one to everybody when we're talking about improvements and whatnot for the year ahead. What does success look like for the Buffalo Bills? When I think about that with the North, success for the Browns has to be a deep playoff run. Success for the Steelers is Kenny Pickett takes a step forward and Mike Tomlin somehow doesn't go below 500 for the first time ever. Success is different for different teams, depending on the point of their team building, their franchise journey that they're on. For the Buffalo Bills this year, is it Super Bowl or bust?
I'm going to say that Josh Allen is suffering from what I call Andy Murray syndrome. Basically, he's a great quarterback.
Cruel. That's a cruel thing to say about anybody.
What I'm saying by that is he's a very good quarterback. The only issue he has Pat Mahomes and Burrow playing at the same time as him. Same as Andy Murray had Djokovic and Nadal Federer playing at the same time as him. That's what Josh Allen's problem is. I don't think it's him. Just he's got two better quarterbacks that he's up against. I think the fans will say success is going to be a Super Bowl, but I think realistically, I don't think that. We'll obviously come to predictions later, but the fans will want a Super Bowl. That's what the fans will see as success. But we'll see how the predictions go later.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, what do you think is our correspondent on the day, Gav? You've spent some time embedding yourself in the lore of Buffalo. I'm perfectly confident you've put yourself through a table or two to really get into character and fully join the Bills Mafia. What do you see as the marker for success for the Bills this year? Where do they need to get to?
Well, I guess the thing that I'd think they've got to be looking for this year is to get that one seed. That's the big platform for postseason success. And obviously last year was a bit controversial with the abandoned game after Damar Hamlin, where the Bills did actually finish 13-3. 16-game record last year, which kind of muddled up with some of the seedings. But I guess that's the thing, how can you get that home field advantage? How can you avoid, the trickier ties and playing that extra game in the wild card? Obviously, I mean, yes, we say you want to win a Super Bowl, but how do you set yourself up for that? And it's got to be being the best in the AFC through the regular season.
It was an interesting comment that I caught about the Bills. I can't remember where I heard it, but the Bills by the end of the year last year, it wasn't that players weren't talented or that they were riddled with injuries. It's that they were mentally and emotionally done. That locker room was done after Damar. After all of the different, the being stuck, I can't remember where they got stuck for like a week because of the snow, all of those things that combined to ruin their year last year. That was the thing that put the nail in them, and it meant, when they then did make it to the playoffs, it just didn't happen for them. So, tell you what, if we're thinking, I think everybody would agree that a minimum of a deep playoff run is where the Bills need to go. Further than that, make it to the bowl. There's a lot of moving pieces in football. Nobody can ever say it's I'm being a bit cheeky, I suppose, when I'm saying Super Bowl or bust. But if the Chiefs, that's because I'm saying Super Bowl. I feel I should go put money in a swear jar now. Somewhere Studs has just became happy, and now that makes me sad. So if we're talking about the Bills going to make that big push, make that big deep playoff run, who is the man? Who is the one player either side of the ball that's going to make the difference for them? Who is going to be the man that says, right, I am going to take you over that line. I am going to be the man that crushes it for you.
Yeah, well, I think there's no question about this, and it's probably not controversial, but it is going to have to be Josh Allen. This is a guy who
give an air horn or a klaxon.
He's going to have to take that team on the take that team on his back, and I think, you know, as we've seen, this is a team that can win 13 games, you know, through the regular season, but it is a team that's going to have to win the big one. And I think there's a few tests throughout the regular season schedule that will already have ringed, you know, from week 1 at the Jets, you know, with Rodgers coming in, you've got to set the tone right from the off. And then he's going to have big playoff rematches later on. You get Cincinnati going to the Bengals in week 9 and also going to the Chiefs in week 14. You know, these are going to be the acid tests ahead of January, because I maybe even presumptuous here, but that's really what the Bills should be thinking all along. How do you get ready for the postseason?
So, and tell you what, you alluded to it, and I missed it because I'm a diddy and I can't read my own script. What do you think are the big games this? So, where are we going to see it? You know, but we all know the Bills can win football games. Everybody knows the Bills can go out and they can win games and they can win divisions. What are the games through the regular season that we should be looking at to say, no, hang on a minute, this Bills team this year is different. This Bills team this year's got the extra in the tank to not putter out into nothing in the postseason, and they can actually go the distance.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, there's a couple of playoff rematches in the slate, but I think the big one, as I say, that's really going to make the statement and set the tone is going to MetLife in week 1 against the Jets. You know, as I say, the Bills have very much had their own way in the AFC for the last few years, but there's a lot of hype around the Jets with Aaron Rodgers coming in, really shaking things up. You know, the Jets really are a team that's loading up. This is an opportunity to say, no, actually, this is why we're the best in the East.
Okay. Right, so there we go. Nothing quite like saying, when is your most important game of the season? Week 1. Set your stall out, make it a victory, and take it all from there. I'm loving that we're getting comments into the Twitch saying that evidently we are the perfect evolution of beard growth, which you know, it does make me wonder exactly kind of where we're being placed and which one of us is perfection. Thank you very much. It's got to be, doesn't it? Surely. This is where we should just like bring Stu in just for like the days when Stu lets his beard absolutely raw. Dan, even the Twitch loves you, can you say? Right, okay, folks. Moving from a team that had lots of excuses last year from being emotionally drained and all the things that they had going on, to another team in the East that had lots of excuses because they kept allowing their quarterback to be beaten around the head. So we are going to move to Miami. We are going to talk about the Dolphins. And it's all the same questions. What is going on in Miami, and what do they look at for the year ahead? Kev, we are coming to yourself, sir. So kick me off. We'll tell you what first. What's happened in Miami over the off-season? What's the big news?
Right. Okay. So Miami, one of the biggest changes I think they've made is bringing in Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. He's come in there. He's going to be reunited with Bradley Chubb from being together at the Broncos. And they've let go of a whole bunch of defensive coaches. So I think obviously Fangio is going to bring in all his own guys.
I feel Fangio is sending a bit of a message.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I have opinions about the standard of your coaching. Here are your P45s.
That's it. Well, I suppose that's why he was brought in. So they've also brought in linebacker for the Titans, David Long Jr. And the big one probably is Jalen Ramsey. He's come in for the Rams, although he is now hurt. So looks like they're going to be missing him for a good chunk of the season. And then outgoings wise, they've lost Mike Gesicki to the Patriots. So I'm going to be burning that jersey I've got hanging up in my wardrobe. And they've also swapped. They've let go Thomas Morstead, their punter, and he's been replaced by Jake Bailey from the Pats. So he's come the other way.
I do find this interesting when you get inter-division trades. Yeah, that's always, I think that's fascinating. Like, you just watch that blow up. Mike Gesicki goes to the Pats, has a phenomenal year, scores a big touchdown against Miami to ruin their year. How bad would you feel? Yeah. So lots going on. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon these changes are going to be what the Dolphins need to kind of see them actually start moving forward, or did they need to do? Well, you know what? Change that. Sorry, mate. What about their draft? We'll finish off their changes before we come to what we think about them. How did they crack on in their draft?
So their draft, to begin with, they were up against it because they only had 4 picks this year in the entire draft. They were penalised 1 pick for an infraction, the whole Tom Brady thing, and then they traded. They still owed a pick out for the Tyreek Hill deal, and they traded a couple more picks for players like Ramsey. So they only had four picks. They done an okay job with the 4 picks that they had. Big ones are, let's see, Cam Smith. They got the cornerback from South Carolina. He should be ready to come straight into the team. He looks decent. They also got a really decent running back in the 3rd round, Devon. Forgive my pronunciation.
This is Devon a change, an interesting one. So what Devon a chain, and I'm presuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's interesting because he's tiny.
Yeah, but lightning quick.
I'm going to even try and grab, what is his stats again? Because he is like, so he's 5'9", 188 pounds. I'm 5'9". Okay, I'm not 188 pounds, but even then, I'm not a million miles. What's that in good British measuring? What's 188 pounds in stone? What's that? That's 13 stone, 13 and a half stone. So he's the same height as me, and he's only got than me. A stone and a bit on me.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? Is that what you want as your running back? What do we think about that? It was certainly a pick that set the newsreels afire because he's getting great highlight plays. But
well, I mean, the thing is as well, they say he's lightning quick, but he's not actually going to be the quickest guy in their roster when you look at Cheetah and Waddle. So it's going to be one to keep an eye on. It's going to be interesting. They've also picked up a tight end in the draft. Obviously, they've lost Gesicki, so they've picked up Elijah Higgins from Stanford. Although there's some dubiety over whether he's actually a tight end or a wide receiver. I think he was announced as a tight end at the draft, but in college he was a wide receiver. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a replacement for Gesicki or what's going on there. But overall, I mean, I think the consensus is their draft was average, maybe B minus, maybe something like that.
It's always tricky when you don't have many picks. When you are only looking at 4 additions from the whole rookie class, it's hard. So, but they have been active. They've been active in the off season. They've done, they've made moves. Obviously, Ramsey's hurt, but they've been doing their best to try and get people in. What do you think is the big thing that the Finns need to focus on this year? If they want to start making steps, if they want to challenge the Bills for the crown in the East, what do the Finns need to do to get there when you look back at their year last year?
Yeah. Well, I would have said before I looked into it, before I started my research, I would have said the same as you: stop people getting to your quarterback, protect your quarterback, because that was a big issue for them last year, obviously. But when you really look at it in the stats, Their defence was shocking last year, and that's definitely the area that they need to improve if they want to improve this season results-wise. I was looking at some of the stats. Last season, they were 24th in points allowed, 18th in yards allowed, and 30th in turnovers produced. And all of those were worse than the previous season. In fact, turnovers produced, they went from 8th in the league 2 years ago to 30th last season. So defense is definitely something that they need to improve, and they need to also improve on offense by mixing it up a bit more, leaning on the runner a bit more as well. That would probably help the quarterback get him hit less if he's handed off to running backs more instead of just keep trying to throw it.
It's an interesting one. They've got a decent running back room sitting there. They might not have that one bell cow, but nobody really does anymore. But it's not a bad room.
Yeah. Well, they've obviously added this young guy who they're hoping will help in that department as well. But guys like Mostert's get injured quite a bit, and again, maybe that's why they've not been running the ball so much, because their running backs have been struggling. But defense and then a bit more options in the running game would be where I'd say they're looking to improve. And I think if you look overall at the changes I've made, they're certainly trying to address that by bringing in the defensive coordinator and changing all the coaches, and they've picked up a few pieces to help them with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Right, okay. So looking at the schedule then, what are your games that when you look at what the Dolphins have got ahead of them this year that you go, that's either just a game that you think looks particularly tasty, or you think these are, like we were talking about with the Bills, these are your litmus test games. These are where you make the statement that you're not kidding around this year, that you're here to make a statement.
Cool. I think first overall, the schedule that we've got is really tough. For me, looking at the Dolphins' schedule, it is hard. According to the bookmakers, they've got the third hardest strength of schedule in the league. But the ones that stick out for me are going to be Bills away. They've got that week 4. They've then got the Eagles on the road again, week 7, and then they're on the road to the Chiefs in week 9. So those are the 3 games. If you
piss off.
I know. Yeah. You're going to find out after those 3 games whether this Miami team is the real deal, whether they've got any hopes, or whether they've got no chance, because it's tough. 3 of their first 4 games are on the road. And then to go on the road to the Bills, then the Eagles, then the Chiefs before week 9, it's an uphill struggle for that team, I'm afraid.
So have they got 6 of the first 9 games away?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah,
I'm looking at it now.
Computer that, isn't it?
Aye,
that's something. Yeah, away to the Chargers, away to the Pats. They've got the Broncos at home, away to the Bills. They've got the Giants at home. Then the Panthers, then the Eagles away, then the return leg for the Pats, Chiefs away.
Wow.
That's harsh. That's really harsh.
Really tough.
I'd be questioning the algorithm for that one.
That's the same computer as SPFL have got for the random fixtures.
It's just entirely random. Oh, Jesus, that is... okay, fair. Kev, that's an excellent comment there. I don't put a lot of stock in strength of schedule. I don't like the... look at last year and that judges how you are for the year ahead. But bloody hell, that's tricky.
Do you know what? I know. And the thing is, that's slightly different, because there are 2 ways to look at it. When we talk about the Eagles later, we'll talk about based on last season's results and the strength of schedules there. But this is the bookmakers. This is the odds. With the strength of schedule there, and apparently they're third hardest. I'd love to see who the first and second hardest schedules are.
No, that's one. We'll maybe find that out before we get to the end of the episode. That's a great question.
A good way to look at it is it means that 6 of the last 9 are at home.
Yeah.
So if they come out of that, also those 3 games are key, right? If for some reason they get to the term that 6-3 or 5-4. to then have 6 home games down the stretch might actually not be too bad for them.
Can you put the foot down and then just try and drive it home? Great, aye.
If you can get to 9 above 500, then you're maybe going to be all right. I mean, all comes down to 2 hours.
Ladies and gents, this is why we have Dan and the crew. It's that sunny, optimistic nature that we keep him about for. Right, okay. To round us off then, Kev, who is the one Dolphin that you think is going to crush it this year? Who is that man that is going to be helping to drive the team on?
I mentioned his name earlier. I mean, I'm not going to go to the usual suspects on the offensive side of the ball, because obviously we all seen what Tua and Waddle, Cheetah can all do when they're playing well. But I think if the Dolphins this year want to progress, then it's going to need to be on the other side of the ball. And I mentioned him, Bradley Chubb came in last season. He's had a full off season with the team now, and if they're going to do well, he's going to have to crush it.
Yeah, having Ramsey are going to have to be sort of lead that defense and kind of use their experience to take them back from 30th. And just as you said that stat about them being 30th in defense, I've just dropped into the fantasy league and picked up an off free agent defense because I picked the Dolphins defense in the draft.
I'm sure that's like insider trading or something like that. I'm certain laws against that kind of stuff. Right, okay. Thank you very much, Ken.
No bother.
Right, so we're gonna move on to the team that's getting all of the press at the minute. Hard Knocks is kicking off soon. Kicked off? I'm well out of touch with Hard Knocks.
Today.
It kicked
Is
off
it today?
last night.
Last night. There you go. I knew it was the hereabouts.
Last night in America, tomorrow night in the UK.
Right. Okay. So Hard Knocks is with us. We can put it that way. Certainly by the time you're getting the joy of listening to this, if you're not listening to us live, folks, Hard Knocks will be here. If you listen to many people, it is the year of the Jets. I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to kick it over to John. He is our resident Jets fan. Mate, have your moment, have your soapbox, and tell us why the Jets are on the way to the promised land. What have you been up to this off-season? And I dare you not to start with the obvious answer.
I'll not start with the obvious answer.
Oh.
I'll start with the unobvious answer. Nathaniel Hackett.
Okay, yes,
Obviously
right.
Getting plenty pelters off Sean Payton the last week, so that's quite an interesting topic, and we play them week 5, so it'll be good to get the popcorn out for that, and hopefully there'll be some action on the sidelines as well. But I think the obvious one, like, he's the hottest show in town, like in New York anyway, is probably Rodgers. Everyone's talking about him and what he can achieve with this team. I think the main problem he's had for all these years is he's not had any wide receivers at Green Bay, so he's came into the Jets. We added Hartman and Lazard as well in the off season. So
I do like, mate, that you say, his problem from Green Bay is he never had any wide receivers. So what we did in New York was brought Green Bay's wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly. Probably one of the better, two of the better wide receivers he had. So Cobb is another one that they brought in as well, who's currently injured. So.
But right, as the big thing, because Rodgers for years has complained loudly at Green Bay for not drafting him wide receiver ones, for not going out and getting him there. No, okay, yeah, he had Devante and all the rest of it, but he wanted more. He's coming to you and he's got Wilson. Is that the combo that gets you as a Jets fan excited for the year ahead?
Absolutely. Like, we've obviously seen little bits of in training camp at them. They've been absolutely lighting it up. Wilson's just actually came back to training camp today. He's been injured for the last few days, so it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on to see if he maybe picks up another injury. That could, I think that would be a big one for us to lose early on, on offense anyway. But
Okay.
I think just in seeing Quinnan got re-signed in the off-season as well, I think that's a big piece as well, getting that tied up before, as you've said, like with Hard Knocks being around, the NFL are always looking for a story to generate for Hard Knocks, and it seems that we're not giving them too much at the moment, so which I'm quite happy about.
For Hard Knocks, do we think we'll get Rodgers singing a song? Aiden Hutchinson famously sung last year. It went down brilliantly. Everybody loved him. It was amazing. Do we think? I don't know. What song would Aaron Rodgers? What is Aaron Rodgers' karaoke tune?
It'd have to be something by the Darkness, surely.
He's been over the off season. He was seen at the Taylor Swift concert, so maybe a Taylor Swift song.
Oh, just need to see if we can shake it off before the season starts. Oh, we'll have that. Right, okay. So obviously the Jets have been the story of so much of the off-season. We all think Rodgers, it was the saga, it went and it went and it went. And we all know how that's wound up when it's resolved now. How it'll end for the year, we'll talk about it a wee bit, perhaps. What about your draft? What did you make of the draft? The Jets brought in seven players in the draft. What did you make of it?
I think it was a mixed bag, to be honest. Like the first round pick was a bit of a surprise when me personally, I was hoping that we were going to get Jackson Smith Najigba, link him up with back with Garrett Wilson. I was hoping in that, and then when Will McDonald got announced, it was a pretty surprising pick. It was an underwhelming pick from a lot of Jets fans' point of view, but we've seen bits of him on last Thursday, early Friday morning in the Hall of Fame game, and he looks electric. So it looks as if it could be a good pick, and it's an area that we really need help on as well. So we also drafted Joe Tippmann of Wisconsin, a centre. They don't reckon that he's going to take McGovern's place just yet, so it's an interesting one to watch. We also picked up a cornerback who they reckon would have maybe been second, possibly a first round pick, and Bernard Converse of, I think it was LSU he came from, so he's a name to keep an eye on maybe.
So why did he fall? So what was the story that why he didn't go early? I'm
sure, like I've not done a whole lot of research on him. I'm sure he picked an injury up in
right, okay.
His final season. So
maybe a wee bit like Ajabo for last year with the Ravens.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, nice one. Right, now tell us the tight end you drafted and be very careful how you pronounce it. This is the only reason that I'm making you do it.
That Kuntz.
That Kuntz, indeed.
Yeah. Yes, I'll use it as a German pronunciation.
As I'm assuming I've made him German. I have no idea what his heritage is, but now he is of German descent. Okay, so overall, how would you rank your draft? So mixed bag.
Yeah, like I think since Joe Douglas has came in, I think his draft has been a bit hit or miss. I think comparing it to last year's draft, it was never going to match up to that kind of standard, I think. But I think you could probably give him like maybe a B-, but you're still, some of these players may not like come in and start right away. Like we had obviously Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall, who all started last year. So it'll be interesting to see where these draft picks come in and play this year.
Okay. Right, well, thinking about that and thinking about how it's all going to come together, as I say, you guys have been active as all hell this off-season. What are the games that you're looking at this year? You know, when you look at the slate and you go, ooh, what are the big ones that you are looking forward to as a fan most?
I think Gav hit the nail right on the head. Is week 1 Bills.
I love it. I just love it. When are you going to decide whether or not your season's important? Week 1. We must victory or we burn it down.
Fire everything.
I think it's like that case of like the Jets have not been like prime time for a long time, and I think it's a way to make a statement as well. And I think that's for both teams. Like as he already talked about, it's the way like for the Bills to make a statement. It's the way for Rodgers to basically announce himself in New York as well. The other, we've got a tough 6-game stretch as we've got the Bills, we've got the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and I think the Patriots as well.
Yeah, your first 6. You're bringing the Bills. Yeah, you play the Bills at home, then away to the Cowboys, home away the Pats, home for the Chiefs, away to the Broncos, and then you've got the Eagles away. So that's a fairly tough slog. Broncos will be tricky. It'll be interesting to see which dangerous Wilson you're facing, and the changes they make. But more about them on a future pod.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, mate. What is this? Who is your man that is going to crush it this year for the New York Jets? Either side of the ball, who are you picking? Who's the man you're pinning the season on?
I'm going to go with for a comeback as a AVT as a guard, right tackle. He plays tackle as well, so I like that side of the ball in the trenches. I think that's where a lot of games are really won. So I like that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we all just appreciate a New York Jets fan who has not just pinned his entire season on Aaron Rodgers? That is, like, I respect it. I have a lot of time for the men in the trenches. They do is they're not playing well. Doesn't matter how good Aaron Rodgers is. If his line's rotten, he's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Right. On you go, mate. Oh, right, okay, sorry, that was me just being a moron. Right, we are moving on, folks. We are coming to the end of the division. It is time to go to the X Dynasty. They were a dynasty back when Dynasty was on TV. It is the team everybody... So I was going to say the team everybody loves to hate, but it's not really the Pats anymore. They're kind of more, I don't know, looked upon kind of like, oh, you used to be threatening. Now that I've upset everybody who lives in, the New England area, we are going to talk about the New England Patriots. Dan, what are you going to be telling me about them? First, as we have been going, mate, how have they been in the off-season? What's the big changes in New England?
Yeah, they've actually had quite a lot of movements in the off-season. We know Bill likes to just move players about and not have people on long-term contracts. So they lost Damian Harris. He went to the Bills. Brian Hoyer left them. Jacoby Myers has now went to Vegas on a 3-year deal. He actually paid quite a bit, $33 million. That's a big payday for him. Devin McCourtney retired. Jake Bailey, as we mentioned already, went to go Dolphins, was it? Yeah.
Yep.
And Nelson Aguilar left as well. So there are a lot of players going out. In free agency, they brought in Mike Gesicki, as we've already mentioned. James Robinson came in, a 2-year deal. They've also signed Juju Smith-Schuster. 3-year deal for him for $33 million. They gave him quite a bit of money for a 3-year deal as well. A couple of players I picked up was Riley Reef and Calvin Anderson. But the only person, so Juju's on a 3-year deal, the rest of them are on a 1 or 2-year deal. So obviously they're not expecting them to be there around for a while. So they're obviously just kind of trying to see the season pass for those players. They did sign a good few players, re-signed players, sorry, they were free agents and brought them back. So Jalen Mills signed again, Jabril Peppers, Miles Bryant and Jonathan Jones all re-signed who were due to be free agents with him.
Who like Jabril Peppers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just one of those irrational, I just quite like that really random player for no specific reason.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've done a lot of research into Pats before tonight. I don't follow him a lot, but as soon as I read the Wizards, Jabril Peppers, he's the same as you. He's one of those players you just, when the name comes up, you think he's a good player. So that's kind of for a player side. We've obviously got to draft in a second. Coaching wise, obviously they had a bit of shambles last year when they brought in Matt Patricia as their offensive coordinator, and that went wrong on so many levels. They also had Joe Judge.
Nobody's seen that one ever going wrong.
Yeah, they also had Joe Judge on the O, and it just wasn't working. So we've built in Bill O'Brien as their offensive coordinator this year, which should be a good move for them. Joe Judge still is floating about. He is now moved from quarterbacks coach to assistant coach of special teams. That's one of those ones we can't afford to sack you, so we're going to put you in the lowest.
He had an office. He now still has an office, but it is a cupboard.
Yes, he went from the top floor to the basement. And the big question that I watched a bit of Bill's press conference the other day, and he was very short with the media. It was not for answering questions about his coaching team at all. Because we asked, why did you bring Bill O'Brien in? Because he's a good coach. What qualities he's got? I just know him. He's really good. We got on well. He just wasn't giving anything away. But he was asked about Matt Patricia, and he basically avoided the question. He basically says, "Is he still going to be on your team this year?" And he just didn't answer the question. So nobody knows what's happening with Matt Patricia. Is he there? Is he not? Who knows? I mean, it's the Joe Judge, when he was asked about that, he says he still has a role with the team. It's still to be defined, but I think it's come out now that that's where he's been. But the answer to the Matt Patricia one was quite interesting, considering they've went back a good few years. He's obviously not happy with Patricia.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I think active is again we went for a couple. Some teams that weren't maybe quite as active to two teams that have been very active in the preseason. What about the draft?
So the draft,
how did the Pats crack on?
So they had quite a lot of low end draft picks. I was just looking at it before you came to me there. So I'll go through the players in a minute. But they had a 1, a 2, a 3, 2 4s. Sorry, 3 4s, a 5, 4 6s, and a 7. So as we know, Bill likes to trade back and stuff like that and get players in the draft. So the biggest pickup was Christian Gonzalez at number 17. I think when we done our preview show, we chatted about the draft. He was one that we were expecting to go maybe a wee bit higher than that. But so that was a good pickup for them. Yeah. So he's come out of Oregon. He goes straight into their defense. And start the games. Keon White, defensive end, again, I think he's another one that will go in and start straight away. Picked him up at number 46 out of Georgia Tech. And then after that, the rest of them seemed to be very typical Bill draft picks, where nobody was like outstanding. He picks these players that are good players and he then makes them better. So a few of them to watch out for. The other one was Mate Mapu, the linebacker. He likes a good linebacker, does Bill. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. And after the draft, and we have to talk about this guy just basically because Stu asked us to talk about this guy. Johnny Lumpkin, right? So he's a tight end, right? He's 6'6", 260 pounds, right? See, when I had heard that and I looked at the pictures of him, I thought, you're massive, right?
I'm actually fairly convinced that he's proof that Transformers are real.
But you'll be surprised when I tell you some other stats. I looked into this, right? So he's 6'6", which is huge, right? But in the league at the moment, you've got Zach Gentry and Donald Parham, 6'8" at tight end. Right? Yeah, exactly. He's 260 pounds again, which is huge. But CJ Uzama is 271 pounds. Mercedes Lewis and Mo Ali Cox are 267 pounds.
These guys aren't players. They're like celestial objects.
They're linemen that can catch a ball. That's what they are. Basically, offensive linemen that can catch a ball. I was I seen Lumpkin. I thought he's huge, and I thought, wait a minute, actually, he's about average.
He's the biggest.
These guys.
But he does also have an unfortunate but fabulous name.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just one of those names. I really want him to get some touchdowns purely so we can hear commentators scream about Lumpkin in the red zone.
So which of the commentators do we want to say his name the most? Who's going to say it the best?
Do you know, I don't know who'll say it the best, but I'd love to hear Romo say it just because I think he would sound really upset. And I just quite like it when Romo's sad.
They were very active in the off-season on the coaching side and in the playing staff as well. So
as you said quite rightly, they did the thing that Bill loves. I really want the Patriots to get the first overall pick of the draft one year, just so we say. And with the first overall pick of the NFL draft, the New England Patriots select another team's third round selection.
They've traded it for the Bills'
someone else. Traded it for the. Right, okay. So what now? The Pats did not have, they are a team that is used to success. I think that's fair to say. Pats history, they are dynasty. When you think about a footballing dynasty, you think of the New England Patriots. Last year, 8-9? The only thing that kept them off the floor of the division, sorry, John, was the MILF Hunter. So it's a sad day when you're looking at another team's quarterback to save your day. What do they need to do to turn that around? What do they need to do to take a step back to where they see themselves? Yeah,
as you go back, if you think back to the Patriots and obviously the Brady era is obviously what we talk about, the dynasties, and one of the things that they were massive on was scoring touchdowns. They scored hundreds of them because they won Super Bowls after Super Bowl. Last season, the Patriots had the worst red zone offense in the league. They were 42.2% in the red zone. That's terrible.
That stings.
I mean, and there was teams out there that were worse than them in terms of overall record and performance, but they were still the worst in the red zone. So obviously that needs to be a massive improvement. How do they improve on that is another question, because the thing I've wrote down there in the words that they don't have a real number one receiver. I mean, I know Smith-Schuster's good and Devontae Adams is decent, but they don't have a number one receiver. And as we discussed on the draft show the other night, is Ramondre, is the running back is he going to be a good running back? Is he average? Is he going to get them touchdowns? So on the offensive side of the ball, they just don't have an elite player. They don't at all. I mean, Mac Jones is a serviceable, decent quarterback. We've got Hunter Henry at tight end again. He's average. He'll do a job for you as a tight end, but on that offensive side of the ball, they don't have that elite player that you think, wow, he's going to do well for them. He's going to be great for them. And I think they're going to struggle on the offensive side of the ball again this year.
Never ever replaced Edelman. That was it. Edelman was the man, and the let to be fair, he's retired. But no, it is the thing. They don't have that alpha, that number one threat that just is open. Why? Because of bloody Corsairs. I mean, we've spoken about it on previous pods that on offense they never had. Brady was your elite player, obviously. They never had elite players around Brady. Brady just made players that much better. Yeah. So they've now went with the same formula, but with Mac Jones at quarterback. With Mac Jones. So, I mean, he's not going to make anybody elite. I feel bad for Mac Jones. Right, okay. Looking at their schedule then, what do you see as the big games for the Pats this year? What are the ones that you look at and you go, that's what's going to be interesting? Yeah, looking at their schedule, there's two sets of games that really jumped out at me. The first four and the last four, right? And that sounds obvious, right? But the first four is Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, Cowboys. Yeah, they could easily be 0-4 after those four games. If Rodgers hits a running in New York, if Tua plays is fit in Dolphins, they're going to lose that. So they could be 0-4 after the first four games, which, with what we just spoke about the offensive side of the ball, are they going to recover from that? The last four games are the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Bills, and the Jets. So I'd probably expect them flip a coin with Denver, but they're not going to win those three games. So suddenly they're already from 8 games, they're 0-7 at least. Do you know what I mean? I think they're really going to struggle this year. Oh, it seems really odd to I agree, but it seems really odd to be saying that about the Patriots. You know, it does. When I looked at that schedule, you normally look at a schedule and go, I looked at where are they going to pick up wins, and I was like, do you know what, I'm actually better pick looking at here, flipping it. As I was looking, where are they going to get losses? I'm thinking, actually, I'm better looking at this and thinking, where are they actually going to get wins?
We'll come to predictions. I'll tell you where I thought they were going to get wins. But
Well, you put a pin in you. Save that to the
I'm
end.
not getting there yet. I'm not going there yet.
We're nearly there. Right.
But,
okay.
I think schedule-wise,
yeah. So we'll tell you what. Then you're saying you're on doom and gloom. We want optimistic Dan back. We want sunshine and rainbows. Who is the man that's going to prove you wrong? That's going to make a mug of you. Who is the man that they need to crush it this year?
Well, he's not going to make a mug of me because he's on the other side of the ball for what I've been slating. So I think it's going to be Josh Uche, however they say Josh Uche. So last season, in the last 10 games, he finished with 11.5 sacks, which is for a team that wasn't doing great with the Patriots. That was a great record. So it's going to be between him and Judon for the sack leader this season. Then I think I've hedged my bets on him being the one that's going to win that battle with Judon for who's going to get the most sacks. So I think defensive side of the ball is going to be key for them, and I think I'll go with Josh Uche.
Right, okay. Well, you had it here first, folks. Judon will not be the sack leader for the Pats this year. That's bold. Right, okay. It is that time where we are going to wrap things up. We're going to wrap up our chat about the East, and we are going to need to figure out how is the East going to land, who's going to win it, who's going to lose it. So I'm going to be asking these. We'll go around the teams, guys. I'm going to be asking these to talk us through them. First, though, I'm going to come back to yourself, Gav. I'm going to start for each of your teams. I want what you reckon their record will be when the time of season closes, and then we'll do the rankings. So, Gav, where do you see end of the regular season? How many wins? How many losses are the Bills sitting on?
So the Bills were 13-3 last year for everyone that's keeping track. Obviously they had that missed game at the end. I'm going to say they'll be 12-5 this year. I think they'll still win the division, but I think there'll be a couple of bloody noses along the way there. Okay,
12-5. Kev, what about yourself? What do you reckon for the Finns? They were 9-8 last year. What do you reckon? Where do they finish up this year?
I think I was going to say 9-8 again. They have got a tough schedule, but I think there's definitely, at least 5 or 6 very winnable games in there. So I'm going to be optimistic for them and think that they can maybe scrape an extra 2 or 3.
Nice one. Right. Okay. Right, John. This is what you get to with the absolute homer of it. Where are the Jets? Just wins and losses. Last year, 7-10 wasn't a great year, as I'm sure you remember. What about this year?
I'm going to go optimistic and go 11-6.
11-6, big turnaround. Now, I'm sure this is where Stu will be listening and typing furiously about how statistically difficult that is. Right, 11-6, that's a big spin. Right, okay. Before we try and put the table in order, gents, Dan, what are the Pats finishing on? They, for reference, were 8-9 last year. Where are they landing this year?
Optimistic Dan's disappeared. The Pats are going to finish. The Pats are going to finish 7-10.
7-10. Oh, right. Okay, gents. We'll quickly whip this one. Put this one to bed. Who's going to be top of the East? Who are my votes? Does anybody think it won't be the Bills?
No, I've got them 34. I've got the
Bills are coming top of the tree. Where are we going with? What about second? Now, this is the one that's interesting, to be fair, because I would agree. I think the Bills are going to be top of the tree. I find second hard. I don't know where I would land on it. Where are you boys coming in? Who's coming second? What are my votes?
I've split the Jets. So I've got them.
I've got one Jets for Dan. Kev?
No, I've split them. I've got them both 10-7.
Oh, right. 10-7 teams.
I wrote the records down and I had it either way. I thought, both records are identical. It's going to come down to the 2 games between those 2 teams. So I'm going to split it and they're going to win 1 game each and both will finish 10-7. So
I was just going to say, I think because of how difficult the Finns schedule is, I think that the Jets will probably next second.
Jets are going to squeak it, right? Gav, I'm clearly coming to you last, John. Gav, what about yourself?
No, I'm in agreement. I think that the Jets, I can see a wee late season surge with Mr. Rodgers. I'm going to take them for second.
Right, John, are you going to be extremely controversial and saying, nah, you think your team's guff and you're going to come third in the division?
I actually personally think that the Dolphins, if they can keep Tua fit, could actually win the division.
Oh,
Oh,
there is it. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Hot take of the evening. So where do you see your Jets coming? Do you see yourselves coming second in the division, or are you not that cheerful?
I think the division's going to be ultra competitive, and there's always like a division that can have like 3 teams in the playoffs, and I think that this could be the division that has all 3 teams in the playoffs. And
Wow.
I agree with like the points. There's going to be like 2 teams probably within the division that's going to be like quite close. I would love to see us finish second in the division, but I can see us finishing third.
Okay. Right.
Even
Okay.
with
To round
Rodgers.
us off, does anybody not see the Patriots bringing up the foot of this division? Does anybody think that they've got a chance in not being fourth? No, they do not. And
Yeah.
with that, so the crew is calling it. Your AFC East is going to be sitting as the Bills at the top of the tree. We are then. I'm siding with New York. I'm feeling it. New York are going to be coming second. We're going to have the Finns, although it's going to be tight, and then poor Mac Jones and the Pats going to be at the bottom of the tree. Right, and that brings us to a close with our AFC East preview show, folks. Thank you very much for listening along. Remember, you can always find us on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch. Find us on all your socials, anywhere you get your podcasts. Get in touch and stick with us for the rest of this series. We are going to be hitting all of the divisions. Football is getting closer and closer, folks. And until next time, the crew will get you through.